What is a case of instant karma you witnessed? Watched an entitled angry man abuse and belittle his server to the point of tears. Then he hitched up his belt and looked pleased with himself as he swaggered off the restaurant deck. Tripped on the stairs. And face planted in the sand on the beach. This was a vacation in Florida. My wife looked mortified as I laughed right out loud at the guy. He got up. Saw everyone staring and at least one person openly laughing. And quick stepped off down the beach. Was buying some drinks at a Circle K one day while visiting someone in Florida and these old tourists cut us in line. All the while complaining and itching loudly about everything. How expensive everything is. How crowded the beach is. It's too hot. etc. They are also really rude to the cashier and take forever arguing about the price of the hot dogs they were buying or something. They leave and as we walk out we witness a seagull come and snatch the guy's hot dog right out of his hand. His wife then shrieks and proceeds to drop hers out of surprise. I know it isn't that big of a deal, but it was so ducking hilarious watching that happening that I still remember it 5 years later. One day a few years ago I was grabbing McDonald's near work to eat something last second before my shift. It was one of those 2-lane microphone deals. I blatantly finish ordering before the other lane before he stomps on the gas to cut me off. His car breaks down right there. And I get to take my rightful turn in line. Saw a guy yelling at another guy in traffic. The guy that was yelling continued to speed off and got pulled over by our undercover cop car on the side of the road. We were driving home late from work one night. Both bartenders. Maybe midnight. We live in a small community. And we were at the 1/4 mile section that goes from 55 to 45 to 35 to 25. A giant lifted truck decided that he wanted to continue going 55. He was up our ass. Brights on. So close you couldn't even see his bumper. It was like his lights were in our car. Pretty much 2 seconds after one of us said, "Where's a cop when you need one?" A deputy passed us going the opposite direction and immediately flipped a rich and pulled him over. Still gives me the warm fuzzes. Duck that guy. Not 100% instant karma. But pretty quickly. See. I work for a staffing agency. I'm a recruiter. Pretty small team and this was actually another recruiter on my team that this happened to. My co-worker was working with this guy who was pretty sharp. He was a programmer. His company was doing layoffs but he was told he wouldn't be affected. My co-worker contacted him. Chatted about the situation and he said he would be interested in looking around. We just had a new client give us a position to help on that fit his background. We lined up an interview pretty quickly. He interviewed and got the position. Great. It was even a little salary bump. Straight direct hire. No contract stuff. He goes in. Works his first week. All is great. All smiles. Well. That next Monday shows up and he isn't there. The company calls us asking where he is. So my co-worker calls him. He answers the phone and my co-worker asks, "Hey. Is everything okay? You know call no showed today over at his company," and the guy proceeds to tell us, "Yeah. I never actually quit my job. I just took vacation for the week to see if I like the place. It was okay but I'll just stay here." My co-worker responds, "Man. Is there anything I can do?" This puts us in a tight spot. This is a brand new customer of ours. Can I do anything? And the guy tells us, "Quite frankly, I don't give a shit what kind of position it puts you in, nor do I care if they're a new customer. I'm staying. Don't call me again," and hangs up the phone. He got laid off the next week. A guy kicked a dog and ran full speed into a brick wall as the dog chased him. My uncle tried to kick the cat. Missed. Kicked a brick wall instead. Broke 2 toes. And almost lost them because he refused to do anything about it and gangrene set him. A different uncle almost lost his hand after a cat bit him while he was trying to drug it to put it in a crate. Bite got infected. Hand swelled up. And they couldn't get the swelling or his fever down. My wife was jogging. And a man starts driving slow and catcalling her. doesn't realize it's a red light and rear ends a truck, totally destroying his Prius. Cop was stopped at the same red light and saw the whole situation. Cop laughed and asked my wife to fill out a witness statement. Edit, it was a busy street. So when I say driving slow, I mean he slowed down while passing her. Probably hit the lady in the truck doing about 35 and a 50. Happened while visiting NY. I watched someone bend down to pick up a wallet someone ahead of them had just dropped. All of this was going down in the crosswalk and I was in the passenger seat with my dad driving. Guy who picked up the wallet began run it to Guy who was already across the street, and while doing so, his wallet fell out of his pocket and on the sidewalk crosswalk area. Some shitty dude in the bike lane rode up a little ways ahead, bent down, and picked it up and just started heading off. Just grabbed it and began to ride away like a bunch of cars hadn't just watched him. My dad was about to say something when a cop car adjacent to us swerved in front of Cycler and made him give it back. Cycler bumped into the cop car and was trying to go around when he was tackled. I think they might have arrested him, but he changed so we couldn't stick around. Coolest instant karma I've ever seen. I was riding the bus to school once. As it is picking up kids, some guy passes the bus while the bus's red lights are flashing. A cop literally turns the corner the second after and pulls him over. This is why we always thank buses. Oh shit. I've been thanking the drivers. Now I understand why I keep getting weird looks. Drunk guy at the bar started yelling at the bartender for cutting him off. Called her rich and whore multiple times and then tried to scoot his bar stool back. Instead it caught on the carpet and he fell backwards like a tree falling. It made a very audible thud and of course, everyone stops what they are doing to look. He laid there for a minute, got up and stumbled to the door as everyone continued to stare at him. Definitely never saw him again. I was at an all good festival once and there was one of those dudes who was just pure-eyed. You know, shouting insults, screaming, throwing shit at people. Just an animal. He was slightly uphill from a main intersection, only maybe 30 feet from the crowd. I was standing around waiting for a friend. The dude's campsite was total bullshit, with some poorly planned tarp city thing held up by a nylon rope that was strung over a pickup truck and secured by slamming a car door shut on it. Suddenly, the guy throws his beer at the crowd, crawls up on top of the car, and starts tight roping it between the car and the truck. I was very impressed that he made it at least 2 steps before the rope slipped a few inches in the car door. The asshole guy spread his legs, and he dropped 3 feet straight onto the suspended rope. I have never in my life seen a guy rack his gonads so hard. In a fetal position, he spun around the rope in slow motion until he was upside down. Then the rope scraped across the roof of the truck, fell between the cab and the bed, partially collapsed the tarp city, and dropped the asshole a couple more feet onto his head in the mud. The asshole got up, shut up, looked a little embarrassed, and limped away as his infuriated friends boiled out of their home. My first car wasn't the greatest vehicle, but I managed to scrape some money together to be able to afford it. And it was something I was proud of being able to have when I was young. I was out driving running errands in an affluent part of the city when I came to a red light. And these 2 dudes around my age in some expensive car that was obviously paid for by their parents, with music blaring through their expensive subs, pull up beside me and are kind of snickering to themselves, taking a few glances at me every now and then. Whatever. It's fine. Eventually the driver rolls down his window and asks, "Hey, bro, wanna put that pussy thing to the test?" and starts revving his engine. Now me being a little sheet, I start revving my engine because I knew they weren't expecting me to do that. The 2 bros go on and start getting fired up. Green light comes, and we both slam on our accelerators. Except I cap out at the speed limit. The 2 douches speed off in a big display and head around the bend. Now the thing about this stretch of road is that there are usually cops set up with speed traps. Lo and behold, when I come around the bend, their car is pulled over to the side with a cop parked right behind them. Lights flaring. They did not seem amused by my smile and wave as I passed by them. Worked after school care for school age kids. There was this one kid who was pretty obnoxious and got under everyone's skin. One day I see him walk into the room just needling another kid. He ends his provoking with an Elson from The Simpsons haha. Spins around and face plants on the ground. The kid he was provoking gave him a haha back and walked off. Obnoxious kid gets up, dusts himself off, and humbly slinks away and is pretty quiet for the rest of the day. Instant karma isn't always a bad thing. About 16 years ago, in my tiny Dodge Neon, I was at a red light and I have no reason why, but I gave a homeless person all of the change in my ashtray. The light turned green, and I made my left turn, and a few seconds later I was hit head on by a full-size truck. When they were loading my car on the tow truck, the driver asked how's the driver, and I simply said I'm fine. He was shocked at first, and then once he realized I wasn't kidding, he said he'd been towing for 20 years and never seen anyone survive this extreme of an accident, let alone be standing there talking to him while loading up the car. Pretty sure I lived due to the good juju. Was on a road trip last week. Guy in the left lane was slowly passing a truck, so there were about 5 of us stacked up patiently waiting for the log jam to clear. Jerk in a Mercedes brakes, ranks into the right lane, speeds ahead, and tries to cut in to save himself 3 car lengths of trouble. All cars band together to not let him in. He almost ran the car behind me off the road and nearly sideswiped him before taking his rightful place in the back. Well, he was pissed after that and was tailgating and in general driving like an asshole. He eventually sped off well over 100 miles per hour. Saw him about 20 minutes later pulled over by a state trooper. Laughed my ass off as I passed his candy as. Spend my last few dollars on a donut instead of using it to tip the person who filled my gas. Dropped my donut as I pulled out the gas station. Saw some lady road raging hard at slow traffic going over a dangerous mountain pass. She was trying to run people off the road trying to get around them. I've never seen anything like it. She could have killed someone. Saw her getting forcefully arrested by like 6 cops at the bottom of the mountain on the other side. Face pinned to hood and screaming. People who have anger issues in one area will probably have anger issues in another. It's generally not a good idea to get angry at cops. I work at a movie theater. One afternoon I was selling tickets at the box office when an older lady came up and asked me a question about our app. It's a Cinemark app. Capital I. However, wasn't sure about the answer and told her that. She proceeded to say, very rudely, "Isn't it your job to know? Are you stupid or something?" Then she turned around and noticed the mall cop was writing her a ticket for parking in a handicap spot when she did not have a handicap plate or placard. She took off running screaming, "Wait, stop. That's my car." I couldn't keep the huge grin off my face for the rest of the day. The washers and dryers in my apartment building are run through Bluetooth and an app you download on your phone. I figured out that if I put my phone on airplane mode while simultaneously pressing the start button on the machine, the washer would start but I wouldn't get charged. I was so proud. Tried the same thing on the dryer and it worked. Went to get my clothes out of the dryer an hour later and everything was covered in melted Hershey Kisses. I liked going to the local fruit stand near my old job before work. It's a small family owned and run place. A little kid was working the register and accidentally gave me back more than I gave them. I give back the money and correct the mistake, insisting it happens and to not worry about it. I'm not telling nobody. The kid must have told her kinfolk about 2 weeks later and I didn't pay for fruit for the next month until I got another job. Karma works both ways. I ran my husband's drunk girlfriend out of my house. She goes to the nearest gas station where they call the cops and she gets a second DUI. I was waiting at a red light to cross the main street of my town. My light goes green, so I start driving. At the same time a truck to my right starts going. I hit my brakes to avoid hitting him. And this kid is looking at me like I'm the asshole. As soon as he's clear, I finish crossing and I see lights starts flashing. He ran the red while being directly in front of a cop. Helping my brother move out of his act after grad school. In parking garage trying to reposition the car to load up the TV or something. Some girl wants to get past us, so I start backing up. But she's crowding me. Like inches from my bumper. Anyway. She gets past and we load up. As we leave the parking lot. She's in the middle of the street having T-boned someone. Felt bad for the poor person she hit. Guy spewed vomit all over the floor in the bathroom at a bar. As I left the bathroom. A big muscly guy in overalls, no undershirt, was coming in. I tried to get his attention and stop him. But he just shouldered me out of the way. He slipped on said vomit and yelled duck as he fell. As he put his hand down to lift himself up. He yelled a much louder duck. As he realized the vomitus was all over himself. At a concert my mom accidentally stepped on a lady's foot. And she said sorry multiple times. But the lady very drunk wouldn't let it go and started a fight with my mom. Very bad idea. My mom's ex-MMA. Straight knockout. My mom met that lady again a year ago at her event for her work. And apparently the lady stopped drinking from what happened that night. Being told by her friends she wouldn't leave my mom alone even after countless times of apologizing. Maybe it was good karma?